that is also like a very kind of flashy show as well, with all the energy blasts and things. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it was so big that it actually affected the way that they did animation, which I thought was quite interesting. And it goes to show though that it's not. It wasn't like one of these shows that like that happened and people said, "Oh, it's a tragedy," and they never like touched it again. It
Yeah.
was like Pokemon still kept going after that, and it just shows like the
Bang.
massive nature of Pokemon that is able to have something so horrible happen to these poor kids, and then it's just like, yeah, yeah. Anyway, the games, just
Yeah,
to
moving
keep
on.
going. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Even though, as we were saying, the show doesn't really. I wouldn't say the show holds up. And I mean, I've even seen clips of like
Afternoon.
the later ones, and I just remember them being just the same, really, just a different region.
Can we talk about though? This might be a bit UK centric, so apologies people don't listen. But can we talk about what surrounded Pokemon, the Pokemon show in the UK?
Hmm.
Because there was an entire like kids TV show around it. I think it was called SMTV Live,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
featuring megastars Ant and Dec and
Hello.
Cat Deely.
How
They
are
weren't
you?
all megastars at the time, we just like normal people. They basically based that entire show on the fact of, by the way, guys, we have Pokemon. And like they would dedicate a segment before the episode to Pokemon. They would dedicate obviously the episode of Pokemon, and then they would dedicate two segments or a segment
Information.
afterwards for the Ant and Dec would do different skits about Pokemon. And it was like they dedicated like an hour to an hour and a half of a 3 hour kids show to Pokemon. That was how huge it was. And once Pokemon, I don't know what happened to the actual show. I don't know if it was between seasons or whatever happened, but basically it stopped airing on this SMTV Live,
There we
and then like the whole show collapsed. It's like ridiculous how fast it all moved. Like, and that just kind of shows you again, watching it as an adult, maybe not a big deal, but kids were not missing that stuff.
It's funny you say that because I don't know whether it's the same show or not, but there was definitely a Saturday morning one. I always remember when they were in like Johto and
Nice.
everything,
Mm.
and they basically, I can't even remember what it was, but they basically were doing like it was like a top 10 episodes or something of that region, and it was really interesting. Because it was like, yeah, we're going to do like the top 10, episodes back to back. And it was like, that was crazy, especially to me, because it was like,
Mm.
I mean, probably it was more acceptable back then
Wow.
because, and this is kind of a like context thing as well, the internet wasn't as big back then.
No.
I'm not trying to make us sound really old here, but the internet was definitely not as big back when we were younger. Like, I think it wasn't until like the early 2000s that we only got dial-up internet, and even then it's not to the same degree as we use the internet nowadays. There was kind of like a mystery to it, it's
It's
like
good over
what
by
you
the
got
game.
was
Hates me.
what was presented in front of you, and anything like beyond that was just like like schoolyard rumors, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and Pokemon had a lot of
can't hear
schoolyard
you,
brothers,
it's
but
a
it came
podcast.
to everything to do with the games and the shows and everything like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like
It's
a
my way to get around
double-edged
the
sword,
D
though,
step.
isn't it? It's like on the one hand,
D-
nowadays you
hey.
don't have to waste your time like going to Bill
Quite a lot.
to talk to him
That's a
100
podcast now
times
instead.
to access his garden. You can just look it up online. But back then, there were so many rumors and things where you could just be like, "Oh yeah,
podcast is from
if you beat the Elite Four 100 times, you
2021.
can." I can't even remember. You'll get
I've
a
got
special
4 years of worth
like
of podcasts to
Digimon or
catch up
something.
on
Like
this
really
podcast.
ridiculous over the top
We're
things
still
that
making
would
more
not
episodes.
be considered like rational nowadays. Back then, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that could be possible.
You've got mail.
You can still find,
Yeah.
is it, what's it called again? Is it Angel Fire or something? Was it? What's the name of it? It was like some kind of early forum. Someone will put it up in chat probably, and it was like the early game rumors forum. And if you Google nowadays, even just like Pokemon cheats or Pokemon Silver cheats or something like that, it'll come up. And it was like people would put up things like, oh, if you do like beat the Elite 400 times, the patch of grass next to Pallet Town, which is behind a wall, will open up and you can catch level 100 Mews in it and stuff. And it would be on the internet, so it must have been true. And like that was just like even that kind of fact checking was huge as well.
Yeah, I always remember the what do you call that art? It's like where they use text to make like the big pictures. Is it
Oh,
ASCII?
ASCII.
Yeah, where you would have that, and it would be like, I don't know if it was Neofax or something like that, but you know, it was like those kind of websites. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it was like you'd be navigating all of these weird websites just to be like, is this true? Can you get a level 100 Mew under the truck or whatever? There was so many, and that was the thing though, because as we said, there wasn't a reliable source of internet and everything. Yeah, it just added to that mystery that you wanted to learn more about Pokemon, both through the world and through, you know, the games, the anime,
Getting
the
there.
sticker
We're almost
book, even. I
Card
think,
game.
yeah. Oh Jesus, the card game. Did you get into the card game?
It depends what you mean by get into it, because I collected the cards.
Beep,
I think like
beep,
most people our age probably
beep,
did.
beep.
But getting into the actual deck building game, no way. And I actually, I can't remember, it was a few years ago now. I think it was when I was at uni. I went back and actually got my hands on a copy of the, there was a Game Boy Color trading Pokemon TCG game.
Oh yeah.
And it's actually really good. The card game's really fun. It's quite simple, which helps me because I don't have time to learn how to meta game. So I just like it when a game gives me the answers, and I kind of just feel really smart. And yeah, I never played the game properly as a kid, but actually playing it as an adult was really fun. It was funny to experience that a lot of the cards that we held in high regard as kids were actually terrible. Like Charizard, the shiny Charizard, the mythical shiny Charizard,
Yeah.
is actually a pretty bad deck card, like for how you have to use it. Well, one of the best cards in the game
got it
is
in the
like
end.
the Chop.
Oh yeah.
He was the front man of every one of my decks in that game.
Yeah, I was in exactly the same boat as you. I used to collect them, and I think I've only played a handful of games in my life, and they were like some of the worst experiences I've ever had. Like I don't know if I've told you this before about the time I gambled away a Chansey card. Did I ever tell you that?
I think you might have done, but let's hear it.
So yeah, just to explain, I used to have a quote-unquote friend, which you can't see, but I'm using air quotes here, who challenged me to a Pokemon card battle. You know, like all Yu-Gi-Oh style. I challenge you to a duel, and it's like, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. Because I had this Chansey, which I think it was like a holographic card, which was pretty neat, not gonna lie. And I just like pulled it out like one of the packets recently. So he was like, oh, if I win, then you can have my Charizard. And he had like one of the OG Charizard cards. You know, the
Right.
ones with like 100. You know, basically the ones that everyone seems to be obsessed with buying nowadays.
Yeah,
to
yeah. If
kind
you got a
of
mint,
flaunt it.
if you got a mint condition one, they're worth like 25 grand or something.
Yeah, something like that.
What
And I was
hard
like, right, I'll fight you with this chance.
Potato,
Flash
potato,
forward,
a big
and
gallon of
spoilers,
potato.
I didn't win. Got my chance taken off. I was told, I like to think I was a bit braver than my parents' accounts telling me that I was crying. I was not happy either way that I'd lost this card. So I remember going up to school to this kid the next day being like, oh, how's my card doing? And he was just like, he basically turned around and went, oh, I traded that off. And I've just had that like bitter resentment since. That not even, like I haven't spoken to him for years, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
That was my next question, because
Yeah,
this
no,
is a bit of a spoiler. This is a bit of a spoiler for people listening. I'll tread carefully here not to give
Yeah.
away any details, but
Mhm.
me and Satsy went to the same school, so I'm genuinely curious who this was and if I can get in touch with him. Gonna message him tonight. Hey, you little
Yeah.
trading away. That's his Chansey card. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just gonna start giving them grief, mate.
Yeah.
We're talking in Discord, so see,
yeah.
afterwards just give me a wee message on Discord, I'll hunt them down for you.
Yeah.
We'll get this sorted.
Yeah. Well, if it helps, it was primary school.
Yeah, no, we went. Did we
Yeah,
not go
we
to the
did.
same primary school? Yeah,
We know
We
shit.
did,
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
even,
so yeah,
even
just-
I'll tell you after the
we'll
stream.
we'll sort-
Oh, that's
We'll
right
get it
away.
sorted.
We'll sort this out. We'll get this sorted. We'll
Why?
get them
What
to get
the-
you a chance to go.
Yeah, this is
Real
like
shit.
this is honestly like the Taken. This is like the Taken when it's like, I don't know who you are, but you have my chance. It's like, yeah, that chance is long gone. I always just felt really annoyed at that, but I mean, it's just like genuinely something that it's like, one of those things that is like, it's a very, oh, what's the word, It's like, obviously it's a very first world problem. It's not something that like I lie in bed at night kind of, sleeping, and then I wake up at like 3 in the morning and go, I should have never bet that card. Just really.
You're talking to someone and like, oh, I took a bit of a chance on that. You're like, chance?
A chance.
Chancey? No! Not a chance.
What have I done? Just sitting there, just having a breakdown. Yeah, like, but I mean, Pokemon actually got so big in our school that, I mean, do you remember like the ban on Pokemon cards?
I do, and I also think I remember the reason why.
Well,
Basically, there was criminal organization was started up in our school around Pokemon cards to do with trading the cards for money, trading the
Oh.
card for food, people being beaten up for the cards. Like it became like it was organized crime happened in our school, all because of like some idiot brought in a shiny Charizard and that was it, man. Like the school goes into a meltdown and locking down the door and everything, man.
I
It was
like
that's amazing.
cheese.
In fact, I'll go
Give me
one
your
step
cheese chap.
further. I remember parents calling one another. I genuinely remember my mum getting a phone call because people were like giving each other like cards and things and
Yeah.
being like, "Is it okay for Satsu to have this card?" and things like that. Because I know he gave it away. It's like, is that okay? And I'm like, oh, it was an utter mess. It's just. I don't want to give the impression that we grew up in like the Pokehood, as it were.
I remember that.
No, but this
Like,
is
I remember
important
childhood.
because
Yeah.
this is important to give you
Yeah, I
the
remember
impression of.
Oh yeah.
This is
I
how
remember,
this is
like,
how important this is how important
childhood, like,
Pokemon was. This gambling existed in our school.
don't know.
Like
It's
something that is
something.
illegal
I don't know what it is
became happened in our
something.
school because of how obsessed we were with Pokemon.
It's like genuinely
What
though,
I do,
you
I don't
could
know.
not walk the playground without people either playing Pokemon, talking
No.
about Pokemon. I remember once I brought in my Pokemon stickers, which it was
Aw.
basically just like, do you remember these books? It was like a big, wasn't really a
a little
hardback
bit
because
pop.
all the pages fell out. It was like really cheaply made.
Yeah.
In there.
But it was like you
I'm
bought
getting
these
there.
packs of stickers, a bit similar to the cards, and you would just basically fill up each slot. I mean, God forbid trying to do like something like that, given the amount of Pokemon now, you would need like a Bible size version. But yeah, it was like the original 151, and yeah, I think I filled up the majority of it. There were a couple. See, this is the thing. There was a couple I was missing, but it was so long ago that there was a thing at the back. It was like a forum you could fill out.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like, I'm missing this card, this card, this card, or this sticker, and it's like, oh yeah, you can send that in, and we'll send you the stickers for money or something. And again, this is like long before the internet and things, and it's just, yeah, it's surreal.
In Glasgow,
Mhm.
they were doing they would be meetups for the books, for the sticker cards and for the cards themselves, and people would go to like the supermarket. The supermarkets would arrange times and dates to turn up and trade cards. Like that was generally what supermarkets were doing. Never mind, that's how crazy it was. Like there was things not even affiliated with it. Like, by the way, come in here and you can trade cards. You can buy them when you trade them, and there's all this stuff. And, like that's how I just want to get that across because even the sticker book had such an impact on the UK.
Because I even remember one of there was a shopping centre years and years ago where I think it had just opened, and in one of the stores there, it was like really long ago, they were doing like events for like Pokemon cards. So it was like you could battle when they give you like a deck and everything, and you would just fight with them. It wasn't great. It was quite boring. It kind of switched me off the game because I mean I think I was in a similar boat where I was more into the games.
Yeah.
Like they were a lot more engaging, and it was something that I could play on my own. I didn't have to like. I mean, I probably could have played the card game on my own, but I don't. It's not like solitaire. You can't like run from table to table and be like, I activate my Charizard. I activate my Pikachu. It's like it's not the same. Whereas the games you can just like flick it on, and my God, can we talk about the merch though? Like, because this is a question you asked in the Discord, when you said what is the weirdest piece of like merchandise you've got for Pokemon, and I was like thinking about it, and I was thinking, oh, I had the games, I had the plushes, the cards, the stickers. I even had like a bouncy ball that had like a Pokemon inside of it. It was really weird. But then also something I forgot was I had the marbles.
What?
Yeah.
Marbles?
I'm not even kidding. It was like normal marble. I'll need to see if I can dig them out. But yeah, they were like marbles, but with like Pokemon like prints on them. So it would be. I'll need to send you a picture of it. But it's like they would have like they'd have like the big marble. That I'm assuming you flick the smaller marbles. I don't know. I never really played marbles. I just had them because it was Pokemon. It was just like I had that. Yeah, and they had like the big Pokeball that you could stick them in to like hold them. It was like massive. What else was there? There was the Burger King, the gold cards. Do you remember them?
Yeah, that was one I looked
Alpha.
up today because
Yeah.
I was like, I was trying to remember what that was. Yeah, that was some
How are
pretty
you?
interesting stuff. That.
Yeah. I remember years ago watching a video on YouTube,
Just
and
missed
I feel
the,
sorry for him, but it was
timeout.
this like literally a
Got
child
into,
like
next
holding up
year.
like one of these Burger King golden things, going like into this potato camera, being like, "Oh hey YouTube, what's up? I think I found this solid gold bar."
I don't like.
It's like everyone in the chat's like, "Oh dear, I
can
hate
fuck off.
to admit it, but that is literally part of a Burger King kids
Who
meal.
comes to
It's not going to be worth much."
I like.
I mean, maybe
I think
nowadays,
this
yeah,
one-
but not like
No, I'm
you
not.
know,
gonna
not
just
the worth of gold.
No.
you fuck off.
Even though it has the protective sleeve, although it did come with like a really cool
Not how it
Pokeball
works.
holder.
Yeah, it's
which
the Pokeball I could remember the
People-
most. That was
Yeah,
the bit I was
here, it's
remembering when I googled
add
it. I was
me
like, I
on
remember the
Discord.
Pokeball, but I couldn't even
Yeah.
remember what was in it.
Not gonna
But
happen.
it was the Pokeball I could remember.
because I've still
Look,
got that
ask me-
like sitting out in
you
one
don't
of my
be in
rooms.
with-
It's like it's
with
a
people.
really cool
Ask
just
me
having
that.
it out. But yeah, like those
You've
kind
had
of things. I'm just trying to think
overrated,
what else.
why?
I had some pretty weird stationery, just like
Oh, nice.
rulers, just like rulers.
Oh,
By the way,
like,
how
yeah.
are you?
Cool.
Alpha?
I had like a what's the thing? Is it a compass you used to draw circles? I had one of
Mhm.
those that was like thick yellow plastic with Pikachu on it, and it was
Ah.
like that's a spike on the end of it. Like, what kind of merch is that? That Pokemon went. You know what? I'm gonna slap a sticker on that.
I mean, do you remember the toys you used to get where it was like the small plastic ones, but you could stick a pencil up them
Yes.
to like be a pencil topper? I swear to God, it's better than the way I'm like describing it here.
No, it's not. No, because that's
Yeah.
the thing. This is the incredible thing about Pokemon is that it was a lot of it was just trash.
Oh, yeah.
It was not better than you're describing it.
Okay. I mean, it's a bit like, so if anyone listening to if anyone listening to this has the misfortune of following me on Twitter, you'll have seen a picture that I posted about, I think a couple of days ago. And basically, I made a joke. It was like a before and after picture of me in lockdown.
I really
But it
don't
was
know
like
why people
two separate
watch
Poly
on
Whirl
Twitch channels.
figures. So, Poliwhirl's a Pokemon. Sorry, just,
Internet reference.
just throwing that out there before like some person's listening to us going, what the devil is a Poliwhirl? So one of them is just like the regular mold, you know, it's in a regular stance, and the other one is just this huge chunky boy with like a metal ball
Huge
underneath
chunky
it.
boy.
And the
So
idea was they made
chunky.
like these chunkier
Oh, you're
Pokemon
chunky.
toys where you just like
Damn,
them
boy,
into
hey,
one another.
Ah,
Yeah.
thick ass
And
boy.
I don't know what the aim was, whether you were supposed to knock them
Thick ass
down,
boy you got there.
or I genuinely don't know. All I remember was I brought them into school one day and they got taken away because I left them in the playground, and I had to go to the, I think it was the prefect or whoever it was of that year, like one of the older students, and I went into one of the classrooms and they were just sitting there and I had to take them back. But it was like, yeah, it was like that moment of, oh god, somebody stole them. But that's the thing though, like throughout that period of like the late 90s, early 2000s, Pokemon was just inescapable. And I'll give you one more example before we move on. I remember
How was
I went
chat?
on a family
hope
holiday
you
to,
were
I
lurking
think
or
it was
having a
Gran
good day.
Canaria. I could be wrong, but
You-
I think
you
I'm
don't need to
convinced
respond,
it
just have a
was.
good day.
And I remember we went by this
Enjoy your
market.
time and
And you know how
relax in, watch the
markets
stream.
in some places are like infamous for having like
Maybe have a maybe
bootleg
have a cup
Oh,
of
yeah.
things
tea.
that are popular
cake,
of like
black
pop culture,
skill.
and one of them was they had these Pokemon cards, and I knew they were fake. I still wanted them for some weird reason, but I knew they were fake, and it was like they're a lot thinner. Like in terms of when you're looking at them and you put them against the actual cards, they're a lot thinner. I'm convinced they're just a sticker, like a really shiny
Yeah.
holographic sticker, just slapped on like a really poorly printed back. Yeah, they were awful. But it just shows like everywhere you went, even when you went on holiday, just Pokemon was there. It
Yep.
was something that, yeah, it was just something you couldn't really escape. And I mean, fair play to them.
That's one thing that really fascinates me because it's not just like some phenomena are quite local. You know, it'll be UK specific or US specific. Like Pokemon is huge globally, and that always kind of bothered me because I was kind of like, we chatted about like how it was so influential in our childhood in terms of the shows that it got picked up with as well and stuff. This was worldwide, and their marketing is so good. The Pokemon Company, that this is so easily a worldwide phenomenon with like seemingly by accident. Obviously, it's not by design.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it is everywhere. Like no matter where you went on holiday, no matter who you met, no matter where they were from, like everyone was into Pokemon at that point.
Like they had a finger in every pie, didn't they? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they had music, they had anime, they had the games, they had bloody marbles, as I said. They had the card game.
They had a range
stickers.
of they had board games. They had
so they
had
did,
like
yeah.
their own Pokemon Master board game things.
Oh, I remember that. Are you thinking of the same video I'm thinking of there?
Maybe I can't remember. I actually had the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we played it like twice and I realized it was
No,
difficult,
didn't.
so to speak. It was very difficult. No, it didn't hold up when we played it at the
Like,
time.
Give me cheese,
Like there
chat.
was even the books as well, wasn't there?
I want
Where it was
cheese.
just
Yeah, yeah.
Why'd you give
really
me your
short
cheese,
recaps
motherfucker?
of the episodes, and it was like Ash was bored. I'm bored, and you're like, oh great, okay. This is the level of literature I have sunk into. But nah, jokes aside, they were in everything, and it's as I said, it's this weird thing that just crept in out of nowhere. Because when I was like looking into this, I don't know like how big it was in Japan when it first came out. Like I've heard it was kind of moderately successful. Like it wasn't the same level. Like up until I think the anime came out, I think the games themselves were received all right, and that's why they
Yep.
put all their eggs into one basket when it came to Gen 2 with Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Where they just thought, oh, this is going to be our final game, let's, pour everything into this. And it was quite interesting. I remember, as we were saying, like the hype being huge, Pokemon being everywhere. And I remember there being hints about a second generation, like, in the very first Pokemon film, they kind of teased other Pokemon.
Yep.
Like from other generations, but they never really addressed it. Like I remember one of the characters, the character that replaces Brock in the anime, Tracy something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he just had like a Marrow, the big blue mouse, and
Yeah,
nobody
right.
addressed it. They were just like,
Right at the start of the movie, they fight Pikachu fights Donphan. Is it Donphan?
Don
I think
Fan,
it's like
it is,
the
yeah.
like right at the start of the film, and it's like, oh, this guy has a new Pokemon. Everyone's like, what? That's not in the 151 poster that I have on my bedroom wall.
I mean, like, even if you look at the short that comes before the film, I think there's one where it's like you've got Snubble as well, and you've also got Togepi as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just introduced and they never address it until until they get to Johto. And it's like, oh yeah, it's a Johto Pokemon. It's like, what? No. you can't just introduce a Pokemon and be like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I'm sure we'll address it. A bit like the whole GS ball thing, but that's
Yeah,
another
don't worry about
topic
it.
for
Don't worry
another
about it. It's nothing.
Yeah, it was just weird, but I always remember the only reason I found out about Generation 2 was I was at the cinema and I can't remember what it was I saw, but the long and short of it was I went out and
know,
they used
yeah,
to have
no
like
problem.
these free postcards that you could take. I don't know why, they don't do it anymore. Well, they haven't been in years, obviously, because of the lockdown. But they kind of stopped doing it. But I remember coming out as a child and looking at this like rack of postcards and being like, what is that weird creature saying come battle with me, or come explore Johto with me? I was like, what even is that? And I picked it up and it was like all of these like Gen 2 Pokemon on the front being like, oh look, Gen 2's here, the next wave of Pokemon. And it's like, oh my god. Mom.
It was. It's funny you should say that because I remember almost nothing from the animation side for Gen 2. Like I was kind of going through trying to figure out where was my cutoff for Pokemon. Like where does Pokemania end? And I
What's the rate?
genuinely didn't see Pokemon 2000 in the cinema, as far as I'm aware, and I
Really?
don't think I ever saw it till years later.
Wow.
And yeah, and I think I'm not the only one,
Mhm.
because if you ask like people that, so I'll quickly double back a wee bit. If you go on like Reddit or any sort of place with like a large Pokemon fan base, there's a term called a Gen 1er, and that's the people like us mostly
Yeah.
who played Gen 1, grew up with it, and refused to accept that the series got better after Gen 1.
Mhm.
But the reason that's such a big thing is because I can name you probably all 151 Pokemon
Mhm.
from the first gen, and my wife who's never played any of the games but just was part of the general consumer, she can probably name about 50 of them
Mhm.
with like very little difficulty. She couldn't name a single Gen 2 one, and I could only name about 30 off the top of my head.
Mhm.
Like compared to, like, there's so many like weird ones. I know there's only 100, but there's so many ones I just can't think of off the top of my head. Part of that might be the Pokemon rap, of course, but
Yeah. I was gonna
like
say, did you not sing that
I did.
yourself when back in the day?
But like Gen 2 just kind of like by that point the magic was kind of gone. It's
Yeah.
such a weird drop off. The game, I stuck with the games for a long time
Mhm.
till the end of the Game Boy Advance. But I think Gen 2 didn't actually do as good as Gen 1, and then it's kind of vanished a wee bit. But I'm skipping ahead a wee bit.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. I was gonna say I have like very irrefutable evidence of me seeing Pokemon 2000 because upstairs I've got two Ancient Mew cards
Oh, nice.
sitting in the drawer. Yeah, so it's like that's my retirement fund, you know. If streaming doesn't pan out, that's what I can fall back on. But yeah, it's like I think they gave out the Ancient Mews during that film, and I
Yep.
think I saw the third one. I'm sure I did. I can't remember. That was the one with Entei,
Ah, yeah, yeah.
and the unknown, which I liked well enough. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, that's my favorite," and it's decent for Pokemon standard. It is decent, but then after that, I kind of dropped off because
Mm.
this is a weird thing. Like I remember, as we've been saying, Pokemon in the late 90s, early 2000s, absolutely massive. You couldn't turn without getting slapped by a Pikachu doll or something like that. The games, I'm in a similar boat, and I think a lot of people our age are very similar in the sense that they stuck with the games, but when it came to the anime, like we got through the Kanto and the Orange Islands, and then I think we all kind of got halfway through Johto, or like saw snippets of it,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden it like we just stopped watching it. Like I honestly don't remember watching the end of the Johto series because I remember apparently at the end of the Johto one, Ash goes to the league and he gets his ass kicked by a guy who's got a Blaziken, which is like a Gen 3 Pokemon, and I think that was at the time when Ruby and Sapphire were just about to come out in the West. And
Sure.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't remember that at all from childhood, which makes me think that I probably didn't watch it up until that point. I kind of dropped it. And I think that I mean, this is me speaking completely subjectively and anecdotally, but I feel personally it's a combination between being bombarded by too much of Pokemon, which I know sounds kind of ironic considering it's like the most, the highest grossing media franchise now. So they've obviously done something right, but it's the fact that like other shows tried to capitalize and pull people's attention away. As I said at the beginning, you had Yu-Gi-Oh, you had Beyblade, Digimon, and I mean there were just so many people kind of capitalizing on that craze. But then again, see the 90s, I mean the amount of like crazes that we went through.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, do you remember, like, off topic, but do you remember things like Crazy Bones?
Yep.
Yeah.
You also mentioned
Like,
you mentioned one offhand when we were chatting before of Crazy Frog. It was like
Oh
different
yeah.
types of different ironic ringtones.
Hmm.
That was like early noughties. Don't even know what my ringtone on my phone is. It's been on silent for 6 years. But
Yeah, that was
it
back
is,
in the day when you needed, or not needed, but people wanted like a very obnoxious, loud
yeah,
tone.
yeah, custom ringtone.
Yeah.
Kind of to spin it back round though, back to
Mhm.
Pokemania. I do have a
Yeah.
question for you, and I've been thinking about this today. So if you do panic, throw it back to me. I do
No,
have an
go for
answer.
it.
Why Pokemon? So why not Digimon? Why not Yu-Gi-Oh? Why not Beyblade? Why not? I don't know what else was around that time. Like, why does Pokemon become so popular in your like? What's your thoughts on that? Why is it? Because it probably wasn't the first. If I'm right in my knowledge, Digimon actually comes out first. So why do you think Pokemon was so successful?
I thought you were just going to end that sentence with why, and then that was it.
Why?
Why?
Why are we here
Yeah.
just to suffer? No. Why Pokemon?
I suppose it was just and again, this is me just saying like 5 minutes ago, oh, the saturation probably killed the mania. But I think it was because it was so inescapable and everyone. I feel as if Pokemon is almost like that cup of tea, and a very British analogy, I know. But it's like, you know how when you make a cup of tea for someone just to, you know, you don't necessarily have to make a cup of tea for someone, but you say like, oh, let's go in and get some tea or coffee or whatever. You know, it's just like a, you know, a saying to like come for a chat. It feels as if Pokemon was kind of that thing for kids, where it was like, it was something that even if you were shy or you were, I mean, like, compared to me, like, little Satsu was a very socially awkward, not many friends, kind of shy person. But when it came to Pokemon, it almost felt as if there was like a unity. Like, like every kid could be like, oh, I like Charizard. Oh, I like this or that. It was long before the days of, you know, people complaining on message boards nowadays saying, well, the IV of Charizard is terrible. You know, like, it's long before that. It was just, there was no internet, or little internet. There was just, it was just you, the other kids, and just being able to bond over this kind of, just this real fantasy. And I mean, a lot of other series did do that. I mean, look at Dragon Ball. Like, you had kids not like punching one another, but like pretending and everything. I mean, you had that. You had Beyblade as well. You know, it was just something that I think, considering the popularity of it through word of mouth and everything, considering the games at the time were really well made, and it gave you that sense of adventure. And I think the anime, although like we say nowadays it doesn't hold up, I think that it definitely helped to kind of foster that feeling, if you know what I mean, that feeling of wanting to know more about Pokemon.
Yep.
So it was like you would see Ash fight like a random, I don't know, Jigglypuff or Aerodactyl or, you know, like any Pokemon, and you would want to know more and be like, oh, they're a cool Pokemon. Like, I mean, how cool was Mewtwo in the film? As bad as that film was at points, like, Mewtwo is still like a really cool idea, and it's one of my favourite Pokemon, I would say. Even
you touched on it. I was waiting for it. So this is why
I fell
this is
into your
my
trap
theory.
hard.
You fell into my, you activated my trap card.
Yeah.
This is why I think Pokemon was as huge as it was. Part of it, like everything you said, is totally correct. But anything could have done that. Like, why was it not Yu-Gi-Oh? They had a game, they had an anime. And the thing that I think is so special at Pokemon is that there's 151 different Pokemon out there for the first generation, and every one of them could have been someone's favorite. Like, even though the game, the anime, we all experienced it the same, we all had different output from it. And I think that's something that, I don't know how to word this, but I think it's something that's extremely special, that even though the experience is the same for everyone, it's also kind of unique. So, like, I'm sure you probably drew up a team of 6 Pokemon. I drew up a team of 6 Pokemon, probably totally different from yours. Everyone's got a favourite Pokemon. I actually did some notes for this episode, and I was going to try and make a joke here, like, oh man, something's, you know, everyone's got a favourite Pokemon. Can't believe someone's favourite Pokemon would be Grimer or whatever. And I couldn't think of a single Pokemon that someone probably doesn't like. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like every Pokemon is probably someone's favorite, from like, especially from Gen 1, because there's so few. And I think that's part of the thing that really makes Pokemania so crazy, is like everyone has this kind of unique experience with Pokemon because of what they loved from it. There was something in there for everyone. If you like cute little plant Pokemon, you like the big scary dragon, you like the almost godly power created by man that hates himself and all life in the universe, you've got Mewtwo, you know, and you've got this incredible spread of Pokemon. I think that is part of the big reason for me that why it's so huge, is that everyone can personally connect it in some way.
I think one of the interesting things I actually read about it was, and I mean, even like to this day, we're still getting like leaks of the beta for Pokemon, like for Gold and Silver, and some of the designs, I have to admit, are amazing. It's a shame that they never got fully realised. But apparently for Red and Blue, or Red and Green over in Japan, apparently there was a lot of debate as to whether or not they should keep the like cute Pokemon. Because they were like, oh, our Western audience is gonna like respond well to, you know, having cute monsters and things when we were all gritty and all of this rubbish. You know, like, it was all about marketing, but they were like, are people gonna respond well to that? And it's like, well, yeah, as you said, it's like there's something for everyone in Pokemon. I mean, one of my favourites, although at the time it wasn't really one of my favourites, I think my favourites just constituted as what was useful, if you know what I mean. So I was like, yeah, Blastoise is great because it's got cannons and it's like really, it can learn Earthquake or something. Or, oh, I like, Mewtwo because it's really strong. Whereas nowadays I'm like, yeah, no shame. I love Porygon or Farfetch'd because it's literally just a duck that holds a leak.
That's exactly what
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think is the great thing that you liked them because of how they were in the game. One of my favorite Pokemon is Kingler, the evolution of Krabby, which, as far as I'm aware, is trash in the games.
Yeah.
But there's a great episode of the anime where Ash has to use a Krabby in a fight that he's never used before and it's never been out in battle, and then halfway through the battle it evolves into Kingler, and like the whole anime's based on this whole episode's based on just one Kingler, and it was like that cemented as being one of my favorite Pokemon forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's trash. But like that memory, that personal connection is so strong. The reason that you've picked your 6 favorite Pokemon would be so entirely different from what I picked. I think that's just such a fascinating part of it.
Yeah, it's like that whole lightning in a bottle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, somehow they've just nailed it down. And I mean, it's weird to think that this all started because, so the creator, I think his name's Satoshi Tajiri. Oops, apologies if I butcher that name. But he was really into bug collecting. And I don't know whether or not that was like a pastime for, like certain people in Japan, like whether they lived in the countryside or not, but it seemed to be something that he was really into and he wanted to share that through like a game. And it's weird how that hobby is just suddenly evolved into this multi-million or multi-billion even franchise that we still talk about 25 years today. It's absolutely insane, but definitely the craze of Pokemania was at its peak by the 90s, and I think the early 2000s, definitely. I think things started. So here's a question for you, getting you back for earlier. When did you think the mania kind of started to die out? Because I've got kind of a theory, like this is all personal, but I've got a kind of theory about